Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Go Bold. My name is Jody Atariwala and I'm your host. And today we are at the Esquimalt Graving Dock in British Columbia. And we will be visiting HMCS Corner Brook, which is one of the 4 Victoria-class submarines in the Royal Canadian Navy. We are standing on HMCS Corner Brook right now, and the submarine that you're looking at is HMCS Chou. All the submarines are virtually identical, and they are amazing pieces of machinery. Many people say that they are second in complexity only to spacecraft, and in a few moments you will see the inside of these submarines and all of the complexity that goes into modern day diesel electric hunter killer submarines. So welcome, and hope you enjoy this episode.
Hi, I'm Master Sailor Jimmy Chou. I'm a Naval Combat Information Operator on board HMCS Corner Brook.
Awesome. Hey Jimmy, thank you so much for joining me on Go Bold.
Yeah, no problem.
It's awesome to be here on board HMCS Corner Brook, a Victoria-class submarine.
Yes.
So this is a cool environment. I don't think many people, there's a lot of people that have never been on a submarine, and certainly maybe fewer that have been on a Victoria-class submarine. Tell me a little bit about, before we get into the submarine, Jimmy,
Okay.
Tell me a little bit about your family history. Where do you hail from? A little bit about your background.
Sure. So I'm born in Taiwan.
Okay.
And I moved out of Taiwan at 2 and moved to Saudi Arabia. My dad was a radiologist in Department of Health in Taiwan. So back in the 80s, they sent a bunch of specialized doctors and technicians to Saudi Arabia. So I lived there for 12 years, immigrated to Canada in 95. And yeah, then from there, went to school and eventually did a whole bunch of jobs and eventually joined the Navy later on in my life at 30 years old.
Nice. So what made you pick the military as a career field?
Well, because my dad was actually in the Air Force in Taiwan. He was a Captain Navy as well. And my brother is a signals operator, reservist in the Army.
Okay.
So both, my dad and brother were already part of the service.
Yeah.
For me, I felt like it's kind of like, I need to do my part as well, right?
Right on.
So that's why I decided to join up.
So was your dad a little bit disappointed when you when you decided to go Navy as opposed to Air Force?
No. I think he thought it was, it was a kind of a cool change because for him, he's the Air Force guy. My brother was the Army guy, so then I'm the Navy guy.
Right.
So it kind of worked out well that way.
Awesome. You covered off all of the bases.
That's right. That's right. Yes.
Fantastic. So you decided to join the Navy, and then a specific trade within the Navy is being a submariner.
Yes.
What made you pick the submarine force as kind of an occupation within the Navy?
Okay, so a little bit of background on my trade. So as a Naval Combat Information Operator, we operate all the sensors and radars on board a frigate.
Okay.
So beyond that, coming into the submarines, it's more demanding because now I'm not only going to be doing my own trade, I have to learn the trades and specifics of other people like electricians, marine engineers, combat system engineer. And that for me was probably one of the biggest challenge, to go outside of my comfort zone, understanding how to be a submariner first, and then be a Naval Combat Information Operator.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so, did you ever do any time on board surface ships?
Yes, I did 4 years on HMCS Calgary.
Okay,
yes.
Excellent. And so, how would you describe the difference of being on a surface ship like a frigate versus a submarine?
Well, that's pretty easy because submarines, there's only like 48 of us, right? 48, 49 plus riders. And you know, you work closely with the same people every day.
Right.
So you understand all the strengths and weaknesses of everyone, and you work well as a team. Whereas on the frigate, you know, there's like 200 plus sailors. You don't normally see everyone, depending on watches. So in that aspect, I really enjoyed like the camaraderie of working in a smaller crew.
Yeah, nice. Now, tell me a little bit about what you do. So you mentioned that you work with sensors.
Yes.
And we are sitting, what is the area that we're currently sitting in?
This is fire control.
Okay.
So basically in this area, we actually take information from this area, which is the sound room where the sonar operators work.
Okay.
So we'll take information from here and we will come up with a target motion analysis on where targets are at.
Okay.
On top of that, if you look to your right, this is the periscope. Right over here.
Right here. Okay.
So we'll take all the information from visual, sonar, and then we can create a solution on where targets are going, how fast they're going, on what course.
Okay.
And this is done at all times so that we don't crash into people if we're on patrol.
Right.
No, you know, anti-collision purposes.
Right. Right. So what's it like actually living on board a submarine, and when you're underway, it's not like a plane or a ship where you can look out the window?
No.
Right?
No. So I mean, that's sort of, I guess that's sort of, I wouldn't want to say it's like the downside of things, because yeah, you don't see the sun until we surface.
Right.
But you know, when you're just sort of on watch, you know, you do your job, you go off watch, you can go read a book, you can go work out, watch TV, hang out with your friends. And you know, it just becomes sort of like a nice routine.
Yeah.
And on top of that, because we don't have internet, you know, no one's looking at their smartphones, checking social media. So you're kind of forced to like
interact with people.
Actual human interaction.
Right, yeah. A novel idea in this day and age.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Well, how about we take a little bit of a look around, if you don't mind kind of showing us describing the periscope a little bit, because I think that's what people think of when they think of a submarine.
Yeah, sure.
And so should we do maybe that one over there where I can see it a bit better?
So we have two periscopes. We have the search periscope.
Okay.
And this is the attack periscope. Basically, they have different functions depending on what we're doing.
Okay.
Normally, if we're dove, when we come up, we'll come up to periscope depth. Okay. And then we'll use the attack periscope, take a look around us, just to make sure we're safe, and if we want to surface, or just to get a bearing of targets around us. Okay. So that's the basic idea of what the periscope is. Right. So that way the ship control officer of the watch can actually visually see where the target is.
Right on. And so, as you mentioned, there's two periscopes. The periscope that we're looking at right there, that one is
the search periscope.
That's the search periscope.
Yes. And that's normally that would be the one that we would use. Okay. In an operational environment, we would use the attack periscope for various reasons. Right.
And so this one back further behind me,
yes,
this one is the attack periscope.
That is correct. Yes.
Okay, awesome. Describe for me, Jimmy, the rest of the area that we are in. So this is kind of like the heart, if I understand it correctly.
It's kind of like the operations room, kind of like the brain of the submarine. Okay. Right, because if you look on port side or left side, this is the SCC, the ship's control console. Okay. And from here, this is where we can monitor levels of ship systems. Okay, so normally if we're at sea, there'll be an engineer that sits here. Okay. Myself, I actually also drive the submarine. I would be on helm as well. So we come together as a team. We can work out the buoyancy to make sure the submarine is safe, and then we'll receive propulsion orders or speed orders from the ship control officer of the watch.
All right, so you have to tell me, Jimmy, what it's like to drive a submarine.
If I would describe it, it's probably like flying a very, very slow spaceship. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you actually go about doing that? So you would be seated at this position.
Right here. Yeah, so normally I would be sitting here at helm.
Okay.
Thank you. So depending on if we're dove or if we are surfaced.
Okay.
So if we're surfaced, normally there will be navigating officers that's on the bridge.
Okay.
I would have my headset, and I would talk to them. So they would tell me what bearing to go, what propulsion speed, and yeah, whatnot. If we're dove, then I wouldn't have the headset. All the orders would just come from the ship's control officer of the watch.
Okay.
And they would just tell me what depth to go, what course and speed.
Okay. So, and you do that, so your steering wheel, in essence, is right in front of you.
Yes. So again, this kind of looks like it's like flying a plane, right?
Right.
And I have my controls in front of me. Basically, it'll tell me what propulsion order, what speed we're at, what course we're at, and what depth we're at.
Okay, awesome. So you're just looking at dials and gauges.
That's correct.
The whole time.
It's pretty much almost like flying a plane, but super slow.
Right.
Compared to an airplane. Yeah.
But I guess one of the things now when you have dived and you're under the water, what does it sound like? And I guess.
Oh. Okay, so you wouldn't hear things, and you can hear moving water.
Okay.
So if the engineers are actually trimming
Yep.
the buoyancy, then you can hear things happening, valves and water moving. But for me, when I'm sitting here, for some odd reason, this is the only place that I can feel the whole submarine, because I'm the only one that moves it.
Right.
If I just push it down, I can just feel it nose tip down. I pull it up a little bit, I can just feel it going up.
No kidding.
And one of the most interesting things that I could also feel if the buoyancy starts to change is when people are moving around the boat as well.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, so
Really?
it's kind of an indication when we're doing a watch turnover, people are waking up from their racks and they're moving from one end of the boat to the other, and I can start feeling like, oh, things are getting heavy.
No
You know,
kidding.
yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's that in a way that sensitive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
That's really, really cool. Okay, so this is going to sound like maybe a goofy question, but I'm going to ask it anyways.
Sure.
We all watch movies, Hollywood movies,
Okay.
and there's submarine movies out there.
Okay.
I'm sure you've seen some. I can think of like Hunt for Red October, Crimson
Sure.
Tide. I don't know others. What do they get right, and what do they get wrong?
I'll give you an example of what they really got it wrong.
Okay.
Which is the one with Gerard Butler, Hunter Killer.
Oh, right. Yes.
There was a scene where the submarine was actually just turning a 90 degree, like almost like a race car.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that
like doing a drift.
exactly like Tokyo Drift.
Right.
But undersea, that doesn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah. That kind of cheats laws of physics, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. But everything else in that movie, like control orders and how their control room works, like all the lingos and stuff, it's all there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Wow. Well, that's good. And what about some of the other ones? Any thoughts on any of the other ones?
Hunt for Red October was really good.
Yeah.
Because that was more specific to a foreign country submarine, so it's hard for me to say on that.
Sure.
Whether or not it relates to our protocol or procedures.
Sure.
But the environment that's in everything, it's pretty similar.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So if I were to ask you what the best part of being on a submarine is, and, there's pros and cons to everything. Okay. What are the best parts of in your view of being on a sub, and maybe not so good parts of being on a sub?
Okay. Yeah. So good parts for me, because being a submariner, it's quite demanding. You know, you are required to understand everybody's job, and so this position or this career, it allows me to sort of sit in different parts of the control room, or even go to the motor room, engine room, whatever they need me to do. So like I'm not always focused on just one job. Like,
cool.
I get to do like many things. So
Yeah.
I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
If you were, but if you're asking about like, you know, things that are not so great, it's probably, you know, sunshine, I guess. You know, I'm an outdoors person, right?
Right.
So whenever we surface, I would also go up to the bridge and do lookout.
Yep.
And I really enjoy like just catching the sun, the ocean breeze.
Oh, that must be, yeah, that must be.
And you kind of look forward to that too, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. No, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jimmy. I really appreciate it. This has been a really enlightening chat, and I've really enjoyed you sharing a little bit about what you do.
No problem. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Thanks. Hey, Jimmy, so we are on one deck on HMCS Corner Brook. Yes. So if you don't mind, I'd love for you to kind of show me the rest of this deck.
Yeah, sure. So we are now in the control room forward. So if we come over here, we'll go control room aft.
So we're heading backwards.
That's correct.
Right.
So what's this one? This is where we go down to 2 deck, which which I'll introduce you afterwards.
Okay, awesome.
Come on this way. Firefighting gear over here is where for emergencies. This is where we bunk up our bunker gear.
Okay.
To my right over here is the coxswain's garage. So this is the coxswain's office, the sick bay, and where I work. EW is just right around the corner.
And tell me who the coxswain is on the boat. Like, what is that position?
So he is the highest ranking non-commissioned member on the boat.
Okay.
Basically, he works very closely with the CEO.
Okay.
He would bring all the concerns from junior ranks to NCOs and bring all their concerns and whatnot to the captain.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. A very important position.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right above me, you can see the sunlight. So that's the main access hatch where we just came from.
Right.
And over here, this is the 56 bulkhead.
Okay.
So basically, so submarine is basically separated into like 3 parts.
Okay.
So we're at the aft part. At this frame is 56 frame, so we say 56 bulkhead.
Okay.
And once we go in, that would be the engine room.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah, so come on in. It's going to be a little loud, so I'm going to talk a little louder.
Cool. Thank you.
So if you look around us over here, it's very busy, and it's really overwhelming. But just to give you an idea, the engine room, this is where our diesel engines are at. Starboard side and port side. Basically, when we're at sea, this is where we would fire them up in order to charge our batteries.
Okay.
Okay? So, yeah.
It is amazingly complex.
That's right.
I don't want to get me.
Come on over here. After this door, this is the motor room.
Okay.
So over here, we're now in the motor room.
Okay.
So if you look at this console, this is the MCC, the machinery control console. It's
Okay.
really similar to the SCC, but over here, it's specific to the actual diesel engines and our propulsion and all of our battery and ship systems.
So basically, this area controls all of everything that makes the submarine run.
That's correct.
Right.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you look over here, we'll come over this way. Over here is our propulsion switchboard. So again, like I said earlier, when I was on helm, I would put in all the control orders for the propulsion for the submarine.
Mm-hmm.
And normally that would be the remote control. This is the actual control of the propulsion over here.
So is there, when you put in inputs into the submarine, is there anybody back here doing stuff?
Absolutely,
or is it,
yes.
or is
there'll be electricians and marine engineers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're taking your control inputs and they're doing what they need to do to make it work? They could.
Yeah, there's various ways of doing it.
Okay.
I could put in the control order would show up here and then they could put it in.
Okay.
Or if the control is in remote, then I have full control of the propulsion.
Awesome.
Forward as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, so right below me is the motor.
Okay.
And as you can see over down here, this is the end of the boat, and that's where the propeller is, outside of the boat.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a very tight quarters in a submarine. And I think this particular view, if I were to say, I think this particular view really gives a sense of how complex submarines are.
That's right. There's valves everywhere, lines, air lines, hydraulic. It's a lot. So, like I said earlier, when I came down to the submarines, as an operator, we don't deal with any of this stuff on the frigate.
Right.
Right. Like that is purely for engineers and electricians.
Right.
But when I came down as an operator, I have to learn most of the ship systems. Not all the valves, but at least the general idea and basic understanding on how each ship system works, and how to turn everything off, finding out where all the power panels are at, understanding the electrical side of things. So there's a wealth of information that we need to learn as a basic submariner.
And how long does that take, Jimmy? Like when you joined the submarine force, you have to learn basic submariner skills, but then how long does it take for you to get up to speed to be proficient in your particular trade?
Yeah, so it's BSQ, Basic Submarine Qualification. So that course takes place in Halifax. It's roughly about 3.5-4 months.
Okay.
And after the course, you come back and you have a package that you have to do. And in the package, there's it goes by different ship systems. There'll be like signatures. So we're looking at a few hundred signatures in order to get qualified.
Wow.
Depending on how motivated each sailor is, you can get it done anywhere from 3 to 4 months.
Wow.
But depending on just the pace of the training, sometimes it could take up to 6 months to a year.
Okay.
It really depends.
Okay.
But the training is demanding.
Right.
But it's very rewarding. And I think everyone can do it if they just put their heart into it
and apply themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right on. So I'm mentioning that this is very tight, and I don't think people really appreciate how complex subs are until we have an opportunity to do something like what we're doing now and see exactly how complex they are. And I think the average Canadian, or the average person, doesn't even have to be Canadian, the average person doesn't realize, when they hear, a sub is docked for a long time undergoing maintenance, even just preventative maintenance, I don't think they really appreciate why it takes so long.
Yes.
But if you just look around here,
there's a lot of moving pieces.
Right.
And even, yes, alongside there's a lot of maintenance. But even at sea, you can see that there's just so many things that, you can't have like a small team. Even though our team is small, we rely on every single person in their position at a given time in order for the submarine to operate properly.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If we're doing like a battery charge, engineers would be in the engineering space, the electricians would be here in the motor room, and ship's control would be in the control room where we're at. And while I'm on helm, I'm trying to keep depth. See, right? I'm trying to make sure like we don't go too deep, or else the water is going to go into the ventilation, right?
Right.
The exhaust.
Right.
So just a lot of moving pieces.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So Jimmy, as we're walking around on this submarine, it occurs to me, and I'm just going to pan around here, at how complex the submarine is, and how incredibly, I don't want to say difficult, because you guys are all experts at what you do, but in terms of like maintaining a submarine, I think people sometimes wonder, why are submarines pier side or having so much maintenance? But just looking at the complexity of this, it's a no-fail system.
Yes, absolutely. You know, we have like engineers and electricians when we're alongside. They have to do like weekly, if not daily maintenances. And not only that, when it comes to maintenance, you know, they have to separate it by different systems. And each system connects to other systems. And that could sometimes take, you know, days to weeks, even months.
Right.
So even just trying to maintain the submarine alongside properly, it takes a lot of manpower, a lot of hours.
Yeah, it absolutely, it makes sense why it is, because once you submerge, you can't rely on anybody else.
That's right.
And it all has to work.
Yes, that's right.
And
it's important that, you know, we rely on one another. Like I said earlier, you know, there's only like a few of us. Whenever we're doing any sort of diving operations, or if we're doing a battery charge, everybody's in their respective positions, you know, and everybody plays a key role in that position, or else it's not going to work. So we do rely on one another.
Right on.
Quite important.
Right on. Awesome. Thanks, Jimmy.
No problem.
Thank you.
I'm Sailor First Class Mathew McFarlane. I'm a weapons engineering technician on board HMCS Corner Brook. And this is the weapons storage compartment.
Awesome. And so for Matthew, for perhaps the layman, this is what I would call the torpedo room.
That's a pretty accurate description.
Awesome. So tell me basically what we're looking at here. This is, and whereabouts, we're at the forward section of the submarine, right?
That's right. The forwardmost portion. The forward dome of our pressure hull is up there.
Okay.
And we're on the uppermost deck, if you want to think about it that way.
Okay.
So here we obviously store weapons.
Yep.
And you can see that we've got a shape for our torpedo system. This is an inert weapon.
Okay.
That is used to practice firing the system for familiarity, proving technical readiness.
So for people who might not be familiar, a shape is basically a practice torpedo that isn't like a war shot.
Correct.
Right.
So
Right.
it's not fitted with a warhead.
Right. And what's amazing to me is how large a torpedo is. I don't think people really have an idea how big they are.
Yeah, it's more than 3 of your average Canadians tall.
Right. Right. So it's about 18-ish feet, or
27, I believe.
oh wow. Oh yeah. So definitely
Significant.
Yeah. It's amazing. So the question is, when I pan around here and I look at the complexity of this whole space, and it's indicative of submarines everywhere I've been on the submarine, it's very, very complex.
Yes.
So the first question I have is, how do you get a torpedo into here?
So, if you'll watch your step here, you'll notice that we have 2 large rails here. And these go all the way out to the casing of the submarine.
Okay.
So we actually crane a weapon, which is our colloquial term for a torpedo,
Right.
into the front of the casing through guided rails.
Okay.
And then there's a trolley that fits in here, and it's actually stowed up forward, that'll bring the weapon all the way back and then lower it by cable here. And these trays are all part of a complex traversal system.
Okay.
So these trays can come all the way to the middle of the space and across with fitted rails.
Okay.
And there's also rails on the deck.
Okay.
And that allows us to bring a weapon in, put it into a tray, move that tray so that it's in line with torpedo tubes up forward,
Okay.
which can then be hydraulically loaded into the tube.
Wow.
It's a complex evolution. It takes many bodies and an extreme amount of experience.
Yeah, I'm sure. So how many torpedoes can a Victoria class submarine hold?
You want this still pushed out?
18, I believe.
18. Wow. And so for you guys to load it up, that's probably, I would imagine that's a multi-day affair. or could you do it in a day?
We're pretty well practiced at this point.
Okay.
I've seen torpedo loadings go by faster than
really?
Even I would believe at times.
No kidding. Wow.
Many well-trained hands.
Right. Yes, right. Indeed, they do. So tell me a little bit about how exactly, like, if you were going to load a torpedo, how does that happen?
So if you look at this outboard rail here, this is what we call a reload line.
Okay.
So it's not in line with the torpedo tube presently.
I see.
So for this weapon to go into that tube, it has to come traverse inboard one step,
right,
and then be hydraulically rammed forward.
Okay.
So there's a rail here you can see.
Yep.
And there'll be a chain inside.
Okay.
That connects to a loading bar mechanism that pushes the whole weapon. So it's a fairly significant amount of force.
Yeah, interesting. And would you terribly mind just showing us a little bit about the where the torpedo tubes are themselves? Sweet. So tell us what we're looking at.
So these are our 6 torpedo tubes.
Okay, and so there's 1, 2, 3. So 6. So 6 in the front, 3 on each side.
Correct. Yeah, we have 3 port and starboard,
Uh-huh.
and they can fire in salvos. You can fire from each side.
Okay. And are there any rear torpedo tubes in this submarine?
So rear firing torpedo tubes did exist on our previous class of submarine.
Okay.
But the advent of wire guided weapons makes that unnecessary.
Right.
Because the weapon can be steered.
Right. Right.
And set into a search pattern to steer itself at a later time.
Sure. So you don't need to fire out the back end. Right.
Unfortunately, it would be cool, but not required.
Right. It would be cool. Right. I guess here's a good opportunity to take a look at the shape for this dummy torpedo.
A really great fun fact, actually, is we put metal trays onto these torpedo racks.
Metal trays?
They serve as bunks for trainees.
Oh, no kidding.
So you can convert unused weapon space into additional sleeping quarters for our unqualified submariners.
And this actually seems like it's got the most room of any space on the sub.
There's a great deal of advantages to sleeping in the WSC.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd give up my rack, but there's a great deal of advantages.
Awesome. Well, if I were to ask you, of your experiences on board the submarine, what has been one of the highlights that you've had during your time?
Well, I would default to I got my dolphins around 200 meters underwater. So that was a very exciting personal milestone for me, and obviously joining with this fine crew and proving that I could do it, I guess, you know.
Yeah, right on. How do you find that it's changed you or has it changed you as a person?
I think my technical acumen has increased exponentially, and the submarines offer a lot of opportunity to distinguish yourself from your peers. So a good example would be that I used to be...
DWS speaking. HMCS Corner Brook will be carrying out a vacuum test in 30 minutes. Anyone not off the submarine at 1100 will remain on the submarine until 1130. That's all.
Stuck with us now. I was formerly a fire control technician, so I worked with torpedoes and the weapons discharge and handling systems.
Okay.
But I was given the opportunity to acquire a second trade where I became a sonar technician.
Oh,
working in the control room on the various sensor suites that keep the submarine safe in the water.
Right on. Do you have a particular area that you prefer to be in?
Being a fire control technician is awesome, is a ton of fun. I occasionally miss it, but branching out and becoming a sonar technician gave me an opportunity to use more of my skills I acquired civilian side.
Yeah.
And really develop a solid base for technical knowledge.
Awesome. So if I were to ask you, for those that are interested in the Navy and in submarines specifically, what advice would you give?
That's a big question. I had the opportunity to join through the NCM STEP program, which granted me a subsidized college education.
Okay.
And then I went to the surface fleet and I managed the opportunity to have 2 deployments under my belt before I applied for submarines.
Okay.
I think that there's a great deal of opportunities available to someone joining the Navy in 2022. Mm-hmm. And the fun comes from exploring those options.
Yeah.
I've been to Vietnam, I've been to Singapore, Australia many times. these are places I probably wouldn't have gone if I had not have enlisted.
Yeah.
And the college education doesn't hurt either.
Right. Right on. Awesome. Well, Matthew, thank you so much. I really appreciate you showing me around the torpedo room of HMCS Corner Brook.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.